A simple woman walked into the shooting range, ignored by every man there. She doesn't belong here. Travis Sullivan sneered, watching her fumble with the safety equipment. But when she picked up that pistol and took aim, everyone fell silent. They had no idea what was coming next. The morning sun cast long shadows across Riverside Shooting Range, nestled in the rolling hills outside Sacramento. The scent of gunpowder and freshly cut grass mingled in the crisp October air. As pickup trucks and SUVs filled the gravel parking lot, this wasn't just any Tuesday morning. It was advanced marksmanship class where serious shooters came to prove their worth. Catherine "Cat" Torres pulled her modest sedan between a lifted Ford and a military-style Jeep. Feeling oddly out of place, at 42, she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her blonde hair pulled back. In a practical ponytail, she wore a simple gray hoodie and jeans, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed expert marksman. That was exactly how she preferred it. The outdoor range buzzed with masculine energy. Men in tactical gear clustered around shooting benches, comparing custom rifles and swapping stories about their latest conquests. Both hunting and otherwise, their voices carried that particular blend of competition and camaraderie that came with shared testosterone and shared targets. Well, look what the cat dragged in, came a booming voice from the main cluster of shooters. Travis "Bullseye" Sullivan stood center stage, as he had for the past 3 years at this range. At 35, he cut an imposing figure, 6'2", broad shoulders, arms covered in tattoos that told stories of weekend warrior adventures. His custom rifle case cost more than most people's monthly rent, and he made sure everyone knew it. Didn't know they started offering beginner classes on Tuesdays. Travis continued, loud enough for the entire range to hear. A few chuckles rippled through his audience of admirers. Kat walked steadily toward the check-in desk, her expression neutral. She'd heard worse, much worse, in places where the stakes were life and death rather than wounded egos. The range officer, a weathered man named Bill, who'd seen his share of hot shots come and go, handed her the standard safety waiver without much enthusiasm. First time here? Bill asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather be dealing with his regular customers. Yes, sir, Kat replied simply, signing her name with practiced efficiency. Behind her, Travis was holding court. See, the thing about precision shooting, he announced, adjusting his designer shooting glasses, is that it's not just about pulling the trigger. It's about understanding your weapon, reading the wind, calculating distance. Takes years to develop that kind of instinct. His audience nodded appreciatively. Most of them had been trying to reach Travis's level for months, hanging on his every word about grip pressure and breath control. He'd earned their respect the hard way, by consistently outperforming everyone else who stepped up to the line. Kat picked up her rental equipment and found an empty spot at the far end of the range, away from the crowd. The range settled into its familiar rhythm of controlled chaos. Commands echoed across the outdoor facility. Range hot, cease fire, all clear. But underneath the standard safety protocols, another dynamic was playing out. One Kat recognized all too well from her past life. "Hey, sweetheart," called Marcus, one of Travis's regular crew. He was a stocky man in his late 30s who owned a local auto shop and considered himself something of a ladies' man. "You sure you're in the right place? The basic safety course meets on Saturdays?" Kat continued setting up her equipment, methodically checking the rental pistol they had assigned. Her standard range weapon, nothing special, but functional. "I'm exactly where I need to be," she replied without looking up. This drew a round of snickers from the group. Travis sauntered over, his custom .45 caliber pistol gleaming in its holster. Everything about his setup screamed serious money and serious attitude. From his professional-grade ear protection to his tactical vest covered in unnecessary pouches. "Now, don't get me wrong," Travis said, positioning himself where everyone could hear. "I'm all for women learning to protect themselves. Lord knows in today's world you can't be too careful. But this here's advanced marksmanship. We're talking precision shooting at distances that would make a grown man sweat." He gestured broadly at the targets downrange. Some set at 50 yard, others at 75. A few ambitious ones pushed back to an intimidating 100 yard. Most folks take months just to hit the paper consistently at 25 yard. Kat finished her equipment check and stood, finally giving Travis her full attention. "I appreciate the concern," she said evenly, "but I think I'll manage." This was exactly the wrong thing to say. Travis's expression shifted from condescending amusement to something harder. He'd built his reputation on being the undisputed king of this range, and challenges, even implied ones, didn't sit well with him. "Oh, you'll manage," Travis repeated, his voice carrying just enough edge to make his buddies take notice. "Well, ain't that something? Boys, we got ourselves a natural here." The group closed in slightly, their body language shifting from casual interest to mild hostility. It wasn't malicious exactly, more like pack behavior, the way groups of men sometimes reacted when their established hierarchy felt threatened. Bill, the range officer, emerged from the small equipment building carrying a clipboard. He'd been watching the interaction with the weary expression of someone who'd seen this dance too many times before. "All right, everyone, let's get started. Travis, you want to demonstrate the grip technique for our new shooter." Travis's chest puffed out noticeably. "Be my pleasure, Bill." He turned to Kat with exaggerated politeness. "Mum, if you'd step over here, I'll show you the fundamentals." See, most people, especially women, they try to muscle the gun, but it's all about finesse. Kat watched as Travis moved into his shooting stance, every motion deliberate and showy. He was good. She could see that immediately. His form was textbook perfect, his breathing controlled, his grip exactly what any instructor would teach. He squeezed off 3 rounds at a 50-yard target, and the shots grouped tightly in the center ring. "That's how it's done," Travis announced, stepping back with satisfaction. 15 years of practice right there. Of course, some folks have a natural gift for it and others. He shrugged meaningfully. "Well, let's just say not everyone's cut out for this kind of thing." The message was clear. "Know your place, lady." Kat nodded thoughtfully, as if genuinely impressed by the demonstration. "Your turn, sweetheart," Travis announced, stepping aside with theatrical gallantry. "Don't worry if you don't hit anything. Happens to the best of us when we're starting out." The entire group had gathered now, forming a loose semicircle behind the shooting line. What had started as casual observation had evolved into something more pointed, a test, an initiation, a chance to see the newcomer put in her place. Marcus pulled out his phone, clearly hoping to capture something worth sharing later. "Remember," Travis continued, his voice taking on the tone of a patient instructor dealing with a particularly slow student. "Grip it like you mean it, but don't strangle it. Breathe steady. Squeeze slow, and for God's sake, don't jerk the trigger." Bill handed Kat a magazine loaded with 3 rounds, 50 target. He said simply, "Take your time." Kat accepted the ammunition and moved to the firing line. The rental pistol felt foreign in her hands, heavier than what she was used to. The grip slightly different. She'd grown accustomed to more sophisticated equipment, but she'd also learned long ago to adapt to whatever tools were available. Behind her, the commentary began in stage whispers. $20 says she doesn't hit the target at all," someone muttered. "I'll take that bet." Marcus replied, "She looks like she's got some backbone. Might actually hit the paper. Paper don't count for nothing at 50 yards, Travis added. "We're talking about the scoring rings here. That's where you separate the wheat from the chaff." Kat loaded the magazine, chambered around, and raised the weapon. She could feel their eyes on her back, waiting for the entertainment to begin. Part of her, the part that had survived 3 tours and countless impossible situations, wanted to show them exactly what she was capable of. But she'd learned patience in a harder school than this range would ever be. Her first shot rang out across the valley, through her scope. She could see the bullet had struck the target, not center mass, but solidly in the scoring area. A respectable shot for a beginner. Nothing more. "Not bad," Travis called out, his tone suggesting mild surprise. "Little high end to the right, but you're on paper. That's better than most folks do their first time at this distance." Kat's second shot grouped closer to center, earning a few grudging nods from the audience. She was performing exactly as expected, competent enough to avoid complete embarrassment, but nothing that would threaten anyone's established position. "See there," Travis continued his running commentary. You're improving already. Of course, it takes most people months to develop any kind of consistency. The real challenge isn't hitting a big target once or twice. It's doing it over and over under pressure when it counts. He gestured toward a smaller target at 75 yards. Now that there's what we call an intermediate challenge, takes a steady hand and a good eye. Most of the regulars here can manage it on a good day. Kat's third shot found the center ring of her assigned target, drawing a small round of applause. It was solid shooting, exactly what any instructor would hope to see from a promising student. "Well, I'll be damned," Marcus said, lowering his phone. "Girl's got potential." Travis maintained his patronizing smile, but Kat caught a flicker of something else in his expression. He'd expected her to fail spectacularly, providing entertainment and reinforcing his position as the range's undisputed authority. Instead, she'd performed competently, which was somehow more threatening than complete failure would have been. "Real nice shooting," Travis said, his tone still friendly, but carrying an undertone Kat recognized from a dozen military briefings. Of course, anybody can get lucky with 3 shots. The real test is consistency over time. Travis walked to his equipment bag with the deliberate swagger of a man about to make a point. The group sensed something brewing. Conversations died down and everyone's attention focused on their unofficial leader. "You know what?" Travis announced, pulling out a pair of high-end binoculars. "I'm feeling generous today. How about we give our new friend here a real challenge? Show her what this sport's really about." He pointed toward the far end of the range where a small steel target sat at the 100-yard line. It was roughly the size of a dinner plate. Not impossible for an expert marksman, but definitely not something you'd ask a beginner to attempt. "That little steel plate out there," Travis continued, clearly enjoying himself. "I've been working on that shot for 6 months. Hit it maybe 3 times out of 10 on a good day. Wind's tricky at that distance, and you got to account for bullet drop." Marcus let out a low whistle. "Travis, that's your money shot. You sure you want to?" "Oh, I'm sure." Travis interrupted, his eyes never leaving Kat. "See, I believe in pushing people to their limits. How else you going to know what you're made of?" The challenge hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Everyone understood the subtext. This was Travis reasserting his dominance, putting the newcomer back in her place with a task designed to humble her. Bill stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. "Travis, that's a pretty advanced shot for someone's first day. Now, don't you worry about her, Bill." Travis replied smoothly, "Lady says she can manage. Remember, I'm just giving her the chance to prove it." Kat studied the distant target through the range's spotting scope. The steel plate seemed impossibly small at that distance, especially with the afternoon breeze beginning to pick up. She could see exactly what Travis was doing, setting her up for public failure that would reinforce every assumption they'd made about her. "What do you say?" Travis pressed, his voice carrying false encouragement. "Up a real challenge, or would you rather stick with the beginner targets?" The group watched expectantly. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, when the confident newcomer would have to admit her limitations and accept her place in their established order. Kat stepped back from the spotting scope and looked at Travis directly. "One shot." "One shot." Travis confirmed, his grin widening. "But here's the thing. When you miss, and you will miss, I want you to understand that this isn't personal. It's just reality. Some folks are built for this kind of precision and others." He shrugged eloquently. Kat nodded thoughtfully as if considering the wisdom of his words. "And when I hit it," the question caught Travis off guard. The absolute certainty in her voice was something none of them had expected. The afternoon wind had picked up, making the flags at each distance marker dance and flutter. Any experienced marksman knew that wind was the great equalizer. It could turn a perfect shot into an embarrassing miss or make a marginal shooter look like a hero if they read it right. Travis stepped up to the line first, wanting to demonstrate the difficulty of the shot before Kat's inevitable failure. He took his time checking wind direction, adjusting his stance, running through his mental checklist with practiced precision. This was his element, the moment when all his equipment and training and natural ability came together. "Watch and learn," he announced, settling into his shooting position. The shot rang out sharp and clear through the spotting scope. Everyone could see the bullet's impact, close, maybe to into the left of the steel plate, striking the wooden frame that held it in place. "Damn. Wind," Travis muttered, but he was smiling. He demonstrated exactly how difficult the shot was, setting up Kat's failure perfectly. "See what I mean? That's why this is advanced marksmanship. Everything's got to be perfect." He stepped back with obvious satisfaction. "Your turn." "Sweetheart, remember what I showed you about grip and breathing?" Kat moved to the firing line. Without ceremony, she picked up the rental pistol, still the same basic range weapon. Nothing fancy or customized like Travis's equipment. The group gathered behind her, phones out, ready to capture the moment when she learned her limitations. But something had changed in Kat's demeanor. The hesitant newcomer was gone, replaced by someone who moved with quiet, efficient purpose. She checked the weapon with motions that were too smooth, too automatic for someone learning the fundamentals. She studied the wind flags for a long moment, her eyes tracking patterns that most recreational shooters would never notice. Then she settled into a shooting stance that looked subtly different from the textbook form Travis had demonstrated. More compact, more stable, worn smooth by thousands of repetitions under conditions these men couldn't imagine. "Take your time," Travis called out helpfully, no shame in missing. The shot interrupted him, the sound somehow different from his attempt, sharper, more purposeful. The distant ping of steel being struck carried clearly across the range, followed by absolute silence. Through the spotting scope, the steel target swung gently on its mounting chain, a bright mark exactly in its center where the bullet had found its mark. "Holy," Marcus breathed, then caught himself. Travis stood frozen, his brain struggling to process what had just happened. The shot he'd been working toward for months. The demonstration of his superiority, executed perfectly by a woman who'd supposedly never been to this range before. "Lucky shot," someone whispered, but the words lacked conviction. Kat safetied the weapon and stepped back from the line, her expression unchanged. The transformation back to quiet newcomer was so smooth it was almost unsettling. "Well," she said simply, "that was fun." Travis found his voice finally. "That was how did you?" He stopped, regrouped, tried again. "What kind of shooting do you do, Set?" "Because that was just a hobby," Kat replied, beginning to pack up her equipment with the same methodical efficiency she'd shown throughout the day. Bill stepped forward, his weathered face creased in thought. Something about her movements, her bearing was triggering recognition. "Mum, if you don't mind me asking, you got military experience?" Kat paused in her packing, considering the question around her. The group waited in complete silence. Everything they thought they knew about the day suddenly called into question. "Some," she said finally, "a while back." The understatement hung in the air like smoke from the gunshots. The silence stretched uncomfortably as the implications of that single word. Some settled over the group. Bill's expression had shifted completely, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by something approaching respect. "What branch?" he asked quietly. "Army," Kat replied, continuing to pack her equipment. "Served 12 years before I decided it was time for civilian life." Travis's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. 12 years military service meant this wasn't some weekend warrior or National Guard dropout. This was a career soldier who'd chosen to walk away. "What was your specialty?" Bill pressed, his tone now carrying the careful respect. "One veteran shows another." Kat paused, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Started in military police, but spent the last 6 years as a designated marksman. Did 3 tours overseas, Afghanistan twice, Iraq once." The words hit the group like physical blows. A designated marksman wasn't just any soldier. They were the elite shooters, the ones trusted with the impossible shots when lives hung in the balance. Marcus slowly lowered his phone, suddenly understanding how ridiculous his earlier comments had been. "Jesus," he whispered. "We're talking about a real sniper here." "Designated marksman," Kat corrected gently. "Snipers are a different specialty entirely. Though I did cross-train with some scout sniper units during my second deployment." Travis finally found his voice, though it came out as a croak. "Why didn't you say anything?" Kat shouldered her simple bag, leaving behind all the rental equipment. "Say what? That I've spent years perfecting skills I hoped I'd never need again." Then I come here because punching holes in paper is a lot more peaceful than the alternative. She looked around the group, taking in their stunned faces. You all assumed I was just some suburban mom trying to learn self-defense. I let you assume that because sometimes it's nice to be underestimated instead of feared. Bill stepped forward, extending his hand. Ma'am, it's been an honor having you on our range. You're welcome back anytime. Kat shook his hand firmly. Thank you. It's a nice facility. She turned to Travis, who still looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Your form is excellent. By the way, that was a good shot you made. Wind's tricky at this distance. Travis nodded numbly, his entire worldview having shifted in the span of 5 minutes. And Travis Kat added, her voice gentle but firm, next time someone new shows up, maybe ask questions before making assumptions. You never know who might walk through that gate. With that, she headed toward the parking lot, leaving behind a group of men who would never again assume they knew someone's story based on their appearance. The gravel crunched under Kat's boots as she walked toward her modest sedan, the sound carrying clearly in the sudden quiet that had settled over the range. Behind her, she could hear urgent whispers as the group processed what had just happened. Travis stood rooted to his spot, staring at the distant steel target that still swayed gently from her perfect shot. His expensive equipment suddenly felt less impressive. His years of weekend practice somehow diminished by the effortless precision he just witnessed. 12 years military, Marcus muttered, shaking his head. Designated marksman. We just tried to school a designated marksman. Bill walked over to Travis, his expression a mixture of amusement and concern. Son, you might want to think about what just happened here. I don't understand, Travis said, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked so ordinary, like any other suburban mom. That's exactly the point, Bill replied, glancing toward the parking lot where Kat was unlocking her car. You see a woman in a hoodie and assume she doesn't belong. But that woman has probably seen more combat than all of us combined. As Kat's car pulled out of the parking lot, the afternoon sun caught her windshield, creating a brief flash of light across the range. She drove the speed limit, signaled properly, and disappeared around the bend like any other Tuesday visitor. The group stood in contemplative silence for several minutes. The dynamic that had defined this range for years, Travis as the unchallenged expert, everyone else as aspiring students, had been shattered by a single perfect shot. You know what the really crazy part is, Marcus said finally. She wasn't even trying to show off. If she'd wanted to embarrass us, she could have done a lot worse. Travis slowly began packing his equipment, his movements mechanical. She let me go first. He realized, watch me miss, then casually hit what I've been working toward for months. Probably figured one demonstration was enough, Bill observed. Folks like that, they're not interested in rubbing your nose in it. They just want to be left alone. As the group finally began to disperse, the conversations were markedly different from earlier in the day. Gone was the boastful swagger, the casual dismissal of anyone who didn't fit their preconceived notions. The lesson would stick with them long after the gunpowder smell faded from their clothes. In an age where first impressions and snap judgments ruled the day, they just learned that the most dangerous assumption you can make is that you know someone's story based on what you see on the surface. The quiet ones, the unassuming ones, the people who don't feel the need to prove themselves. Sometimes they are the ones with nothing left to prove. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. Major Catherine Torres reminds us that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. It speaks through actions when actions are needed. Have you ever made assumptions about someone only to discover you were completely wrong? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear about moments that changed your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories about ordinary people with extraordinary backgrounds. And let us know where you're watching from. Until next time, remember, the person sitting quietly in the corner might just be the most capable person in the room.